So welcome back. In the last video, we spoke about the module requests, how to import it and how to use it to get data from Wikipedia. We were looking at the Wikipedia page for Theodoric the Fourth, and I instructed you in the video before that to kind of start getting familiar with HTML code. Hopefully you've done both of those things. You've gotten familiar with HTML code and you've gotten familiar with some of the basic functions and requests. And if you have, it's time to move on to do more advanced things with web scraping. And to do that, we're going to be using a module called Beautiful Soup. And in this video, I'm going to take you through step by step so that we can do something pretty awesome. It's my goal that by the end of this video, you'll be able to go to this website and extract all of the data that we want from it. We are going to be able to extract the title, the contents, the table over here, all of this data here, and finally be able to extract the sources that are on the page. And the script is going to look something like this. Took me about probably 15 minutes to write. A couple moments I had to troubleshoot a couple things, but I'm going to explain to you what all of this is actually doing, and we're going to write it essentially from scratch. And if you remember from lecture number, let me look on the list, number 10, you should immediately recognize what these are. These are a series of functions that I have written, and one function that is going to basically do all of them. And by the time this video has finished, you will be able to write something that will do this and go through and web scrape all of Wikipedia's page. We have here the title of the page. We have here the content of the page. We have here the table that was on the page. Notice the birth year, 712, death there, issue, there we go, successor, predecessor, and you'll be able to even get the sources. And the way in which we do this in Python is with a library called Beautiful Soup, which is very beautiful indeed because it means that we can web scrape tons of data very, very quickly from the internet. So without further ado, let's kind of get just right into it, jump in, and start working on the actual code. So I'm going to cheat a little bit through this video. I don't want to make a lot of mistakes, and working with Beautiful Soup, you have to be precise. And instead of making mistakes and kind of troubleshooting, I'm going to go through and just kind of write the code as we go, but I'm going to be using my code that I've already written, tested, I know it works. I'm going to be using that as a roadmap. So instead of just what I've done in the past videos, putting the code up there and just explaining what each line does, I'm going to go through and write it in real time. So the first thing you need to do when you're writing your script is you need to import requests, and you need to import, you need to do from BS4, which is the new way in which you call Beautiful Soup. It's Beautiful Soup 4, but it's the way the module is stored in your Python scripts library. So you say from BS4, you want to import Beautiful Soup. Great. Hit enter a couple times, however many times you want to do it. I always like to put a space between my the modules I'm importing and the actual Python script that I'm writing. And as we go through and write this script, we are not going to immediately create all of these functions. Instead, we're going to take everything bit by bit. The first thing that I want to do is I want to go to the Wikipedia page, and I want to extract this right here, this Theodoric the Fourth, this header. So the way in which I do that is I right-click it, I hit inspect, and I pull up my data over here. And what I notice is that it is an H1 tag with an ID of first, all lowercase, heading with a capital H. That's important. Also, it's the class as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use that information to work with Beautiful Soup. So the first thing I need to do is I need to go back and do what I did before. I need to set up a URL. And this URL is going to be this web page, and we're going to put it in quotation marks. This is the Pythonic way of structuring our URL. We saw this in requests before. Then what I need to do is I need to find a way to actually output the data. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to be using a file. And this file is going to be, I'm just going to copy and paste this because I don't feel like writing it out. This file is going to be Theodoric, I'm used to spelling it with an O, is going to be that. We're going to be storing that information, and it looks like we're using folder 19. That's going to be fine. Everyone's going to be fine with that, I promise. It doesn't matter where you store it so long as you're storing it within your directory. So what we are going to do, speaking of which, I need to go like this and like that. Make me a lot happier. So what we need to do is we need to then do what we did last time and use s equals requests.get URL. And this is going to essentially just use requests library to obtain the content of on the HTML code from the website, from the URL object. Now what we need to do is we need to start working with Beautiful Soup. That's all we're going to do with request. What we need to do, and this is the Pythonic way to do this, is we need to say soup equals Beautiful Soup, and it's important that you get the capitalization correct. Python is case sensitive. And what we need to do is we need to get s, which is going to be this request up here, this object, and we need to get the text from that website. And what we are going to do is we are going to tell Beautiful Soup to read it as HTML. And the way in which you do that is you type in LXML. There's also HTML parser, and then there's also just XML. Just do this for right now. You can explore the complexities of Beautiful Soup on your own. In this video, I'm just showing you how to extract very specific data. So we've got our soup object set. Now what do we need to do? Now what we need to do is we need to actually find something specific on the website. And what we need to find first is we need to find that heading. So what we are going to do is we are going to take that information that we found before. Let me pull it up here. We're going to take this information, this h1 tag, and this first heading ID, and we are going to use Beautiful Soup's find command. We're going to be, or function. We're going to be dealing with a few different functions in Beautiful Soup in this video. We're going to be dealing with find, and we're going to be dealing with find all and get underscore text. I'm going to address each of these as we encounter them, because they each do something very different. So the first thing we want to do is we want to grab the heading tag. And we're going to do soup.find, and we are going to tell it that we want to look for the tag h1. Because h1, if you remember, was the header tag that was used on the Wikipedia website. But we want to be very specific in the h1 tag. We want to grab, and we're going to create a dictionary for this, we want to grab one that has an ID, that's our key, with a value of first heading. And what that is going to do is it's going to set up the heading object to be very specific. It's going to grab that instance of h1 with a ID value of first heading. And on Wikipedia, that's going to be our heading. So what I want to do, let's test to make sure it works. And if you're working with Atom, sometimes you're going to have a problem with Beautiful Soup. You're going to receive a Unicode error. I haven't really figured out why, but Atom is very bad at actually printing off text from the internet. But that's not really too much of an issue because we're going to be really working, and you should be working with taking data from the internet and actually importing it into some long-term storage, such as a text file, Excel file, XML. We'll go over all of those in the next 4 or so videos. But for right now, we're just going to print off this heading to see if it worked. And if we go through, we notice in our output that it looks like this. It has printed off all of this information, but we notice that we've actually found the right bit of information. However, we want to eliminate all of this HTML code. We are not interested in any of that. And in order to do that, we are going to use another function within Beautiful Soup. And this function is get underscore text. And we are going to, like with all functions, have our open and close parentheses. And now what we're going to do is we're going to print this off. And notice that I have just pure in its simple form, just Theodoric the Fourth. I've managed to extract just that header. And I did it by calling this very, very specific tag. So what I want to do right now is I'm going to set this up as a function because I've tested it and I know that it works. So we're going to call this heading extract. We're going to have that to make sure our function knows what to do. And we are going to simply indent this so that we can just kind of move aside and start working with our other data. But before we move on, I want to do one other thing. I want to store that data in a text file. And what I'm going to do is with open file, and we're going to do a plus because we're going to need to append this text file quite a bit. With open file and file object is set up here, we're going to do as f, we are going to f.write, and we are going to write in, let's get this variable, clean equals that. So we're going to write this in. You know what? We don't even have to do that. We can just do this. Let's just do that. Make it easier, have one less object to worry about. And what we're going to do now is test and make sure that this function works correctly. And if I were to run this script right now, nothing would happen because I have to call my function. So we're going to use extract. There we go. And I'm going to run it, and we should see it populate. Well, it should have populated over here in our text file. For some reason, it hasn't. Oh, that's why. We got another text file. It's because I used an underscore here, and that one does not have an underscore. We're just going to roll with that for right now. Okay, wonderful. So we've got our text file. I'm going to delete this so you can kind of see it happen in real time. We are essentially extracting that data from Wikipedia, and this is something you're going to have to worry about. If you do this too many times, Wikipedia is going to slow you down, or any website might slow you down or reject you. This is the kind of the thing that you have to deal with when you're working with Beautiful Soup, is that you are dependent upon the internet to actually perform tasks. Right now, my internet's a little slow. There we go, and it's worked. So we've populated Theodoric IV to our text file. But we want to get way more. We want to get way more information from this Wikipedia page. We want to get, I'm going to go ahead and close that. We want to get some content as well. And in Wikipedia, if you pull it back down, on Wikipedia's page, content is stored within these p tags. See right here, these p tags? And that's going to be all of our main body content. We want everything kind of stored in there. So those 3 paragraphs. So the way in which we're going to do that is we're going to use a different function this time because there's multiple p tags that we want to grab. We're going to be using the find all function. So let's do this. We're going to do contents is equal to soup.findAll, and we're just going to do a p tag. And that's how we tell it what to find. Whatever the tag is called, you're going to type it in quotation marks and do that. And what this is going to do is it's going to create a list. Now, if I were to type in .getText under here, I would receive an error. And the reason why I would receive an error is because getText does not work with a list. It only works with a string. So in order to actually get the text of all of contents, let me go ahead and print off contents so you can kind of see what it's looking like. And this might return an error, a Unicode error. It hasn't. Wonderful. But we can see down here that it's essentially just printed off all of this HTML code. And like last time, we want to use getText. But like I said, we can't get text on a list. So what we need to do is we need to iterate through that list. So we're going to say for I in contents, which is going to return each p tag in contents, we want to print i.getText. I'm going to use that function again, and now what do we see? Let's look down here. Now we see it come out exactly the way we wanted to. What we've done here is we've extracted all of that data. So what we're going to do is we're going to repeat this whole task once again. We're going to, oops, where am I at? We're going to open up our text file, and we're going to actually put everything into it. But since we know that this is working, let's go ahead and make a function so that we don't have to keep on repeating all of our information. So what we're going to do is we're going to say contents is equal to soup.findAll, and it's going to grab all the p tags. And for I and that, we're going to, instead of print, we're going to open. And you know what we're going to do? We are going to open this up here. We're going to indent the for loop. That way we don't have to keep on opening our text file. And that's going to save a little bit in memory. And we're going to do f.write get text, and I believe this should work. And it hasn't for some reason. What have I done? With open file as f for I and contents f.write heading. Oh, that's why. We need to do I.getText. We have printed off something from a different function, and I haven't even called the function. So we are going to do extract that, and now we see that all this information has populated correctly. But you might notice that it hasn't really done what we wanted it to do because there's not a space between those two. So the way in which we can fix that very easily is we can simply write in after this, plus we're going to add a line break. So now what we're going to do is let's run these functions individually. So we're going to run extract, heading extract, and then we're going to run content extract. And what it will do is, as you can see here, put a space between, or put a line break between these two. So now we have two sections of our code working. And now what I want to do is I want to get the sources. I want to get all those sources from that same web page. So what I'm going to do, let's go ahead and just start from the beginning. Let's just make a function right off the bat. So we're going to do get sources. And we've created the function. Now what we need to do is we need to, once again, establish what the sources are. And once again, we're going to use the find all function. And all sources in Wikipedia, for the most part, you'll find some inconsistency in this, are going to be stored as CITE, site. And so what we're going to do is we're once again going to just simply steal all of this code that we wrote before. And we're going to say, and you could put all this in a sub function that can be iterated again and again, but I'm not worried about that. What we're going to say is for I in sources, we want to essentially do the same thing we did last time. And what this is going to do is it's going to give us a nice bit of, it's going to store all of our sources on a line break, or independently of everything else. But in order to do that, we need to put in a little bit of code. So we need to write in, we want to write in a line break, and we want to delineate that what we're looking at are the sources. We're going to put in a line break there. And what this is going to do is when we open up the file, it's going to create this nice little line break between everything so that we can delineate the sources from the other text. So let's erase that and run this. So we're going to run heading extract. We're going to run content extract. And we are also going to run get sources. And we see that it's done that. And all of this, by the way, is in real time. What we are doing is real time here. So it's not taking very long to do this. So we've managed to get all of that information, but now comes the trickiest bit of all this. It took me a little bit of time to figure out exactly how Wikipedia codes their tables so that I could actually get all of the table data. But I really want to pool all of this data here, because embedded in this table is lots of really useful information. Now, it might be wrong. That's not my point here. My point here, though, is that all of this is very useful. You get the period in which the individual reigned. You get the predecessor, the successor, the mayor of the palace at the time. This is the person who kind of served as his chief lieutenant, both administratively and also militarily. You get his birthday, his death year. You get who issued him, the dynasty he belonged to, and his father. This is all really useful information, and I want to get it. So how am I going to do it? Well, I'm going to make a table extract function. All right, that's made. I'm going to take the same stuff that I used before. I'm going to create table is equal to soup.find, And I'm going to use the same thing I did up here for the header. I'm going to grab the table. And the table is going to be that table in particular. And to delineate that specific table, I'm going to use a dictionary again. And I want the table whose class, that's the key, has a value of info box space v card. And that's going to be very specific. And I'll show you exactly what we're looking at here, how I was able to determine to use that. Where is the start of my table? Right here. Table, this table in particular, has a class of infobox underscore or space vcard. And that's what we're going to be specifically calling. But we don't just want just the table. If we were to print off the table, it would, even if you were to just get the text and iterate through it, you really wouldn't get everything that you want in the way that you want it. And you know what? Let's go through it and demonstrate why that might be the case. And to demonstrate that, we're going to just do the same thing again. We're going to borrow this code, and we're going to, with open file, write, and we're going to write in, let's just write in for I in table. We're going to print off, we went to f.write I, and we're going to use that get text again function so we can just get the text. So let's see what happens when I do that. And I have to call the function, extract. Let's see what happens when I do that. I get the information that I wanted, but it's not exactly formatted the way I want it. So we have to start thinking like a program right now. How do I want to manipulate the process so that I can get the specific data that I want? And if you go back to the Wikipedia table, you will find that in each row, there are things that delineate specific things in the row. So a th row is going to have this thing here. If you want to think about it as a dictionary, it's going to have the key, and the value is going to be stored, where is it, right here, as a td tag. So what we want to do is we want to run a loop to grab both of those things independently of each other so that we can store them independently of each other. So what I want to say is for, essentially, we're going to use this command because it's more Pythonic. For row in table dot find all, we're going to grab the tr. And that's going to grab us that first bit of information. Let me get rid of this for right now. And as we go through and iterate across that row, we also want to grab the th tag. We want to grab each individual piece of information separately from the other. So what we're going to say is for the th tag in the row, we want to find all of the th tags. Now that we have that, we want to write that th tag. So we're going to say f.write.th.get_text. And that's going to grab the text from that th tag. And we want to write that into that file. So maybe I should stop here and just kind of go through and see what happens when I run this. When I run this, you can see up here, we get just that stuff from the left side of the column. So we get all of the information. We get like reign, predecessor, successor, mayor of the palace, etc. That's not that useful. First of all, it's not any of the important data that is correlating to that information. It's strictly just the keys. We don't have the values. In order to get the values, we need to go further into our for loop. We need to create another for loop, and we're going to get the TD, which is the value, not just the key, but the actual value in the row. So we're going to do row.find all. We're going to grab all that. We need to specify what we're grabbing. We need to grab the TD, and then we're going to do f.write, and we're going to do td.get text. We're going to use that, so it's a function, and now we can print this off. Let's see what happens when we do this. Once again, you see we have a couple problems, but we're in a little better of a position right now. We've extracted all of our data, we've got the keys, and we got the values too, even right here. We see it with 721 to 737. One problem remains though. Even though we have all of this information, it's not stored the way that we would actually need to use it. It's stored kind of sloppily. It's all on one single line. And I know that because it only shows up as one line in the notepad. All these asterisks mean it's just being wrapped. So it's only one line of data. In order to actually make this more useful, I need to do some extra stuff. I want to make sure that there is a line break before each of these. So I'm going to just go through, and as I manipulate this, I'm going to show you what each new iteration, each little small addition does to our data. So watch what happens. I'm going to leave this up right now so you can see how we append it with our new information. So when I run it now I got the information that's a little bit more legible. I've got Theodoric, King of the Franks, reign. I got his reign, and I got I got the key, and I got the value on the same line. That's still not good enough. I need to also make it somehow easier to see that it's relational, somehow that to structure it so that I can see that these two things are somehow connected. So I'm going to add this. I've added in this colon and a space. Now when I run it, now what do I notice? Now I see that I actually have something. Let me go ahead and just do that. Now I have something that's a bit more legible. Now I actually have that table as it appears in Wikipedia. Go down, and you can see it here. It's all that information extracted. So in these 4 different functions, I've been able to extract all of the salient information, or at least all the information that I wanted from Wikipedia. And one of the things you might be noticing, however, is that the functions over here look a little different than the functions over here. That's because I'm not going to go through and explain this in detail. That's because I've structured these functions so that I can, instead of having to change all the data over here on the left-hand side, I can simply just run new things through this single function. So I'm going to close this for right now. And let's look at this right here. So I have got a function called doAll, and it's going to receive 2 arguments, an A and a B. And this is going to be the URL and the name of the person I'm looking for. And when we input this data into each of these functions, you will see that I am setting up the URL to be equal to A, which is going to be this, and that B is going to change right here in the name of the text file that I'm creating. So why is this useful? I'm going to show you why this is incredibly useful right now. So let's say I want to run all this information. Right now it's coming up under this. So I can run the same script, and it's going to populate all that stuff just like I showed you. But what's really cool about web scraping is typically websites follow very similar patterns for all of their data. And what's nice about this is that we can actually go through and use these functions and just kind of iterate across an entire website if we want to, or copy and paste in specific targeted websites. So here's the Wikipedia page for Charlemagne, and I can change the name to Charlemagne over here so that it'll create a new text file in the output, but I'm not going to do that because I want you to kind of see the results populate as they happen. So I'm going to use the Theodoric text file. So let's run this. This is a whole other page, but all of the same code. So look at that. This was real time, by the way. All of the exact same code, and it was able to extract all of the information on a website I didn't even look at. And if we go through, we see sources populated at the bottom. We see our table right here. It's extracting all the extra information. It's got Charlemagne, Emperor of the Romans. He's going to reign Emperor of the Romans from this date to this date. His coronation's on this date. You can see where we could have benefited maybe from a couple extra line breaks for when pictures are being used. But for the most part, we have all of the data that we want. We have predecessor, successor, king of the Franks. His reign as king of the Franks is going to be from this period to this period. We see all of this information. We can see coronation, we can see the date, and we can see the place. We can see predecessor, successor. My point is that I didn't have to go to the Charlemagne website. I didn't have to change any of the code. I was able to replicate everything because websites are typically very consistent in their HTML structure. It's very rare that you find one that isn't. And the reason why they are is because it's more efficient to actually code HTML consistently, and it creates for a better website. But hopefully you found this video somewhat useful on how to use just the basic elements of Beautiful Soup to extract really anything you want from the internet. Uh, Now, if you didn't understand everything in this video, I encourage you to go back through and look at everything again. I found myself when I was learning Python that this was probably one of the more challenging modules to get a handle on. Um, and it's going to take time. It's going to take time. It's going to take trial and error. But go through, watch this video 3, 4 times if you have to. Try to write this code and try to do something similar on a different Wikipedia page. Try to do something similar on a page that's not Wikipedia. Try to replicate the results on some other random website. And you will find that Beautiful Soup is very, very beautiful indeed. It's an exceptionally powerful module, and it's one that you will use in a DH project time and again, because oftentimes our data is now online, and this is how we access it. So hopefully you have found it useful. If you have questions, feel free to post them in the comments and I'll try to reply. Thanks for listening.